On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. We all have that piece. The one that's so you've basically become known for it. And if you don't yet, fashionistas, you'll find it on eBay. That Miu Miu red leather bomber, the Custo Barcelona cowboy top, or that Patagonia fleece in the 2017 colorway. All these finds are all on eBay, along with millions of more main character pieces backed by authenticity guarantee. eBay is the place for pre-loved and vintage fashion. eBay, things people love.
I'm Stephen Metcalf, and this is the Slate Culture Gabfest. The creator of Succession takes on the Broligarchy. It's Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. On today's show, Jesse Armstrong is the creative genius behind the TV show Succession. He has a feature-length film now out on Max. Mountainhead places 4 tech overlords in an ultra-luxe mansion perched high on a snowy peak. Over the course of a weekend, the only question facing them is which will they destroy first, one another or humanity? It stars Rami Youssef, Corey Michael Smith, he was in that SNL movie, Steve Carell, and Jason Schwartzman. And then Overcompensating is an Amazon Prime comedy. It stars the comedian Benito Skinner. As a freshman away at college who is gay but desperately trying to hide the fact from himself and others, in no small part by acting the part of a toxic bro, sensing a theme here. The show is created by Skinner. It also stars Wally Baram and Adam DeMarco, among many others, a fun ensemble cast. And finally, PR used to be, I guess, a relatively straightforward matter of inputs and outputs, somewhat. You could game it at least a little bit. You had a star, a project, a set of obvious outlets to plug it in. Now it's a teeming wilderness of digital media and no stable sense of what works anymore. We discuss a piece by Nicholas Qua in Vulture called Fame and Frustration on the New Media Circuit. But joining me first from Los Angeles, here in person, in the flesh, bricks and mortar, Julia Turner. Hello, Julia.
Hi. So I'm a robot made of bricks and mortar?
That's your cunning.
All right. Yes, it's so nice to be here in a room with the two of you.
Yeah, it's really nice. Welcome. And of course, I should say you're a fellow at the Annenberg School of Journalism at the University of Southern California. It's lovely to see you. And of course, Dana Stevens is the film critic for Slate. Hey, Dana.
Hey. It's so 2010 vibes or something that we're sitting in the Slate studio all together with Ben Frisch producing us.
I know. Oh, my God. This is my return to the Ben Frisch produced Gabfest. It was just so incredibly fun to see him this morning. And Gab, off mic Gab. So, Ben, welcome back. Our pleasure. Jesse Armstrong's genius, as established by the era-defining show Succession, is for the satirical and now clear up a lifelong mystery for me. Romana Clef or Romana Clay? Or is it dealer's choice?
You know, I've heard that pronounced both ways, possibly even by French people. I would say Clay, I think, but maybe somebody who speaks French can correct me.
Dana, if you don't speak French, who does?
I think it's a scheme by the French to snottily correct you, whichever you use. So his genius is for the satirical Romana Clef, let's say. Just as we knew that the show Succession was in its cunning way about the Murdochs and their battle over News Corp, so too this new feature film, Mountainhead, is totally unmysterious as to its real-world precedents. It's 4 tech bros gathering at a super deluxe lodge, and they're instantly recognizable as archetypes of the Broligarchy. There's the elder statesman, a Peter Thiel-like Svengali figure, a high on his own supply toddler Ubermensch in the sort of Elon Musk mold, a don't be evil guy who may or may not be evil, and a hustler also ran on the permanent make. They are poker buddies, and they tend to speak in in-jokes and buzzwords and plutocrat ease. The twist here is thanks to a new AI whose powers of deep fakery and rage mining are so enhanced, the world, what we used to quaintly called The Real World, is now burning. Meanwhile, the comparative good guy has designed a super sophisticated filter which will tell users what is real and what is fake. Will they team up and save the world, these four, or team up and try to take it over? The show stars, as I say, Carell, Schwartzman, Youssef, and Corey Michael Smith. It's Armstrong. As I understand it, it's his first time helming a movie. It's his first directorial.
Yep.
Yeah. In the clip, we hear Rami Youssef and Corey Michael Smith talking about fallout of a recent update on some of their software, and the conversation goes off the rails.
Hit me. For constructing an intellectual barricade, what are my weak points?
Steelman?
Yeah.
Okay. Steelman says your platform was already divisive and last week's upgrade made it way worse. And now you've inflamed a volatile situation and people are using generative AI to circulate hyper-personalized messages, unfalsifiable deepfakes, shit like named person X goes to named area Y, to buy named weapon, to go at named group, at named hour, promoting genocidal, proximate attacks, creating sectarian division with video evidence, massive market instability, fraud. Yeah. I guess all that, though, is debatable, right, at Tram headquarters?
Look, first time people saw a movie, everybody ran screaming because they thought they were going to get hit by a train. The answer to that was not, stop the movies. The answer was, show more movies.
Yes.
We're going to show users as much shit as possible until everyone realizes nothing's that fucking serious.
Yeah.
Nothing means anything. And everything's funny.
Exactly.
And cool.
Precisely.
Precisely. Dana, I know you agree with that sentiment.
Everything except the part about people running from a train. That's a total canard and it never happened. I just feel the need to say it.
Urban myth.
That's all we have to say about the show. We just need to debunk the film history errors.
On to overcompensating. Dana, what did you make of this as a movie and otherwise?
I mean, it's not quite a movie, right? I kept thinking that while watching it. Like, it doesn't feel like a movie or quite an episode of a TV show. I mean, I guess I'm going to come out of the gate with my main critique of it, although there were things in it that made me laugh as we were all laughing at that clip. While it can be well written line by line and has some really funny performance moments we can get into, this felt so floppy and flabby in its construction that I just kept getting mad that it didn't know narratively what it wanted to do. Like, there's a suspense, sort of without revealing anything, a kind of noirish plot that kicks in 4/5 of the way through the movie after a very long time of what Succession at its worst felt like, right? When there'd be sort of a redundant episode of Succession in those middle seasons, like people in a room talking, mean rich guys in a room saying stuff that was sometimes funny. The vast majority of this thing's running time is that. And so it just felt so shapeless to me that I was annoyed with it. I mean, I think a big part of what Armstrong wanted to do, as he said in every interview about this, was make something that feels very present. So he wrote it quite quickly. Just after Trump was inaugurated, I believe. He shot it in a very short period of time in March as things were changing very rapidly in this kind of tech bro world that he's talking about. And so it does feel very now in terms of its language and the send-ups of these specific tech bro types. But it also feels kind of sloppily thrown together, in my opinion.
I have a mix of a couple kinds of admiration and a couple sadnesses about this project. I think for me, my clarifying moment in thinking it over is the part of what made Succession so satisfying and rich is that it painted our political media environment as a tragedy. And you knew these characters so deeply. And in fact, you found them sympathetic and heartbreaking. And then you watched as their stupid, narcissistic decisions, created our dreadful reality. And it felt so rich and I don't even think of myself as someone for whom tragedy is one of my favorite forms, but that's what it was. And this is like, okay, so what if Jesse Armstrong takes all of that wit and acuity and tries to just make a satire without really the layer of tragedy underneath? Because for almost all these guys, there's nothing redeemable, or you don't get quite to the part of what's making them tick, or whatever's making them tick is sort of just ego and greed. It's less complicated and subtle than Succession. And so if you want Succession, you will feel a little bit of sadness and thinness to this. If you want to like laugh at some well-observed lines, you will also do that. And, you know, I think and that brings me around to the admiration, which is how the hell do you follow Succession? What a smart guy Jesse Armstrong is to be like, you know what? Kind of loved writing that world and put this together lickety-split. And it's like, great. It's so public. It's like, I made it in 5 months, guys. Like, it's a throat clearing. It's like the course between the little sorbet between courses. Like, it's supposed to feel thin. And as a strategic approach for a creator to how the hell do you follow making an epical show with this OCH, epochal. I don't know if that's actually a word you can use in that way, but good work, you know? And like the thing you get a little bit at the end with the noir twist that we won't spoil is that, you know, the character who has seemed like the sympathetic guy, we learn more about what's actually driving him. And that's not great either.
No, it's not. I love that. I mean, it was Shakespearean, right? The story. I mean, succession is a concept that comes out of like English kingship and out of which Shakespeare made great tragedies over and over again. And secondly, it had a second order deliciousness to it, which is that, you know, the Murdochs hide in a way that these tech barons don't. I mean, the tech barons are largely unfiltered. They actually live in and on the tech that they themselves created to a high degree. We feel like we know Zuckerberg. We feel like we know all too well Elon Musk. We don't know Lachlan Murdoch and James in the same way. And so it had this sort of, the deliciousness was in the grandeur of the tragedy. And at the same time, the kind of petty fly on the wall thrill of getting to know what the internal workings of a place whose product is Fox News might be like. This is very different in that sense because these are unfiltered men. We feel like we already know them. A satire doesn't introduce us to new feelings about them or new insights into their highly luridly flat personalities in some sense. Where I thought it was interesting is that that's a family melodrama in some sense, and very, very successfully so. That you get glimpses into the tormented childhoods of the children, the Roy children, and how they're caught between the utter deformities of not, you know, of their childhood that disallow them from being ordinary human beings, and at the same time, the ways in which their father has prevented them from becoming entrepreneurial supermen and women as well. And they can't be anything in some sense. And they're just lunging at both being and greatness and missing every time in these ways that are quite genuinely sad. This one strikes me as the high school pecking order among boys. It does have a weird equivalent of it. And if you look at it, yeah, they're the archetypes of like Musk and Zuckerberg and Thiel, whoever, but it's really the internal politics of that kind of pecking order. You've got the alpha, the upstart, the good guy, and the patsy in some sense. And it was in watching them try to work out the relationship of the four of them with one another in relation to a world that's being destroyed and maybe actually physically and morally degraded in the extreme, depending on how these four people work out their inner psychodynamics. To me, who was someone in a high school pecking order, I found it very familiar and weirdly resonant. And you're right, Dana. I think the noir twist kicks in too late because that's where it suddenly becomes a film. And it's otherwise kind of a staged play in ways that are interesting, but ultimately unsatisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are really giving it a pass. I wish I had enjoyed it enough to say so many nice things about it. I kept trying to reapproach it with goodwill and finding it just so claustrophobic. And I know it's deliberately claustrophobic and they're supposed to be shut away in this mountain retreat, but there was something about the satire happening out in the outside world. First of all, that was just, there was a kind of imbalance between the relative realism of the conversations in the chateau, right, in Mountain Head, the place where they're secluded, and what they see unfolding in the world as they look at the news on their phones. And this technology that they've just unleashed, it seems like days before the movie starts, is already making the entire world fall apart. Like that satire was so extreme, right? The idea that sort of the world would instantly collapse and various countries would be in flames because of their technology, that it wasn't really balanced with the world building, I guess you would say, just didn't feel substantial and complete to me. So it felt, again, thrown together like a sketch almost. And these guys all are sketch comedians in a sense, right? And I have a feeling there was a lot of improv on set, which is why some of the interactions were so funny. It was just a strange imbalance because at the same time, I laughed quite often, especially at Jason Schwartzman, who I think is the MVP of this cast. Yeah. He's so funny in that particular kind of role as the kind of one who's pitiful because he's only has only hundreds of millions of dollars. He hasn't hit the billion mark yet. And he's obviously he's had, I think, made a whole career out of playing those kinds of, ambitious losers, right? Guys who are just trying to slightly scale up their reputation, and he's hilarious.
And he's hosting. It's Mountainhead is his estate, and it's all of his aspiration and all of his desire and drive to be as ugly and ubermenschy as these other guys is made into glass and steel. It's just, Julia, it's just the architectural physicalization of like loneliness and arrogance of the type, right? There's no other human habitation. It's just mountain peaks and this McMansion kind of plopped on top of it like a bad toupee.
Doesn't it kind of look like the Honora mansion? I mean, it's like a different taste aesthetic, but the sort of like ungainly verticality of it and the views.
As with Honora, the location scouting is one of the strongest things in this movie. And that happened in succession, too. Remember when they go to the mountaintop retreat place? I mean, whoever just found that place that you access it only by little kind of funicular cars. This had a similar feeling. Yeah, there was so much going on that could have made this engaging. And it just, to me, felt like it went in circles and then ended.
To me, what saved it is the charm of the acting. Like all four of those guys are doing great things. And obviously we've seen Steve Carell be funny and we've seen him do his serious roles. And this is like a 1-2 combo packet, which is great. Schwartzman, we've talked about. I loved seeing both Rami Youssef and Corey Michael Smith in this. Corey Michael Smith is such a knockout, and he was the best thing in the Saturday Night Live movie by far, but he had a lot less to do there, and he's incredible in this. Like, it's so close to the Elon Musk mania in a bunch of plot points that being able to play that character and not have it feel like a sketch is actually or like an SNL sketch. The whole thing's a little sketchy, as you've said, but I really believed that character and just found him so charismatic and compelling. And then, I've seen more of Rami Youssef's work in his own projects. I know he's done other stuff as well. But I just liked seeing him in Succession Land and the way the film plays with our expectations around him. I mean, he's the one non-white guy in the room, and he's the one with the moral compass, it seems, which doesn't seem like an accident either. And then where the film takes that has additional weight.
I'll give you one thing I kind of quote unquote learned. I sort of knew it, but I didn't really know it until Jesse Armstrong more or less explained it to me, which is the way in which these guys who pride themselves so much on having no priors, I've got no priors, and pure rationality leads them to the principles that they act on. And this is so good at showing you how it's absolutely the reverse, that what they want from the beginning. It is their dominant prior, which is nothing should get in between me and my own prerogative, no matter what it is, period. And how you extrapolate from that to effective altruism, this imagination that trillions of people will live perfectly happy lives if I'm allowed to do whatever I want in the present. It's flipped on its head. You just want to do whatever you want in the present, and you like some large ideological architecture to make it seem world historical and heroic. I thought Jesse Armstrong is really fucking smart, and he came to market really fast with something that has extreme topicality, and it suffers and benefits from that at the same time. Around the table, would you say to a friend, you should watch it?
Yeah. No.
Tiebreaker.
Although I think your last summary was perfect. What you said about, him using his smarts to make something super topical, and there's the good and the bad in that. Yeah. It's like if you're interested in Succession and Jesse Armstrong and want to see the next thing he threw together, then you should see it. But if you want like a well-constructed actual movie that is not this.
You're so old-fashioned. You still duck when the train comes at you in the movie theater. I'm the tiebreaker. I say absolutely watch it. Why not? It's fun. All right, moving on.
Hey, are you looking to elevate your gift game for Father's Day this year? If so, you should check out Quince for thoughtful, simple, and effortless pieces for all the dads in your life. It so happens that I'm in the room with a dad who is wearing a product from Quince. So, Steve, can you tell our listeners what people should get their dads or the dads in their lives?
I would have gone a lot further in life if I were Machiavellian enough to have put the shirt I am currently wearing on this morning, knowing that I would be talking into a hot mic about the sponsor. I did not do that. I am a Garanimals level dresser. Like I have no foresight and no Machiavellian gene whatsoever. It just so happens that this, I think, quite lovely blue, deep blue linen shirt is a Quince shirt. I love this shirt. It's so infallible. It's so incredibly well made. Full stop, but then maybe a tiny parens. It's like astonishingly well made for the price. So I would love it if my, little jackals and blood-sucking kids could pull their head out of TikTok for 5 minutes to think about what their father might want for Father's Day. But I don't even think they know that Father's Day exists. But if they did, I would want them to load me up on some Quince.
All right. Well, the best part, other than looking really sharp when you show up to record your podcast, is that everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. That's because Quince works directly with top artisans and cuts out the middleman to give you luxury without the markup. For the dad who deserves better than basic, Quince has you covered. Go to quince.com/culture for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/culture to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/culture.
Steve, you were out last week, but do you know what we unveiled last week?
Given the state of my inbox, which is crowded these days and all with the same subject line, I'm going to just throw a wild guess out there and say Summer Strut.
Yes, we are now accepting your submissions for our annual Summer Strut playlist tradition. This is something we've now been doing for, I don't know, like 15 years off and on. A long time, where we invite you all to send us the songs that put a little pep in your step in the summertime. They can be old, they can be new. Then we review them and come back to you guys with a playlist of our faves later in the summer. So for the next couple weeks, not forever, we will be accepting your submissions. Please send no more than 3 songs to culturefest@slate.com. Please send a link to where we can find the song if you can, and use the subject line 25 Strut. Again, we'll be accepting submissions for a few more weeks, so get your tracks in now while you can. Also, my other item of business is to remind our listeners that if you're hearing this, it means you are not yet a Slate Plus subscriber, which is really too bad for you.
Highly problematic, really.
I mean, people can make their own choices, but it means
they can't.
It means that you're missing out on our bonus episodes every week. This week, we're going to take a look at a New York Times package about the first 25 years of dining in New York City and zoom it out to look at restaurant culture in the century so far and talk a little bit about where we stand with that. And you also get ad-free feeds of our podcast. You get ad-free feeds and bonus content for all the other Slate podcasts like Slow Burn and the Political Gabfest. And of course, you get unlimited access to all the great writing on slate.com. You'll never hit a paywall if you're a Slate Plus member. And of course, you'll be supporting our work and the work of our brilliant colleagues. These memberships are really important for Slate and for our show. So please sign up today at slate.com/cultureplus. Again, that's slate.com/cultureplus. Or subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of our show page.
Benny Scanlon is a parent-pleasing perfectionist. He was his high school's football star, its valedictorian, its homecoming king. And in no small part to please his domineering parents, he goes away to his freshman year at college, still closeted, trying to keep up the act to fit in with the bro crowd. He keeps coming up against his own tormented sexuality, and that, or as I should say, his tormented relationship to his own sexuality. And that causes him to double deal and betray people close to him, most meaningfully his new best friend, Carmen, played by Wally Baram. The show also stars Adam DeMarco, Mary Beth Barone, and Rish Shah. And then we have Charlie XCX, who's on an episode, appearing as herself very funnily. She's also a producer. In the clip, we're going to hear an awkward conversation between Benny and Peter, played by Adam DeMarco, who's the head of the frat that he's trying to rush. Let's listen.
So, how the freshman ladies treating you? Any hotties?
Definitely. This one girl actually invited me to her pregame. So
Oh, shit, Bento! Yo, bring bitch to the Bader House party tonight. I'll wingman for you.
Sick. Yeah. What time?
Late.
All right, great. Like 8:15.
Oh, you're fucking with me.
Like 9:30 or?
No earlier than 11.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's great. I love the night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm gonna help you seal the deal. All right? Tonight sets the tone for the rest of college. Either you're a dude who fucks, or nah.
Nah, I'm definitely gonna fuck some vagina tonight.
Okay.
Oh.
Weird way of saying it.
Yeah.
But I like your spirit.
Yeah.
Legit. Oh shit. You know that?
Yeah.
That's tight.
Yeah, my friends and I used to bird call.
Nice.
Yeah.
Julia, I'll start with you. What did you make of overcompensating?
I was surprised by it on a number of fronts. I'd start by saying Benito Skinner, the star and the person around whom the show is created, is known online as Benny Drama 7 and has millions of followers. And I follow him and I'm loosely aware of his deal. And his deal is like not being a naive, straight football player from Idaho. It's like, it's much more, kind of performative. And there's a lot of wigs. Like that's not what's happening here. And apparently this show is loosely autobiographical and based on his own experience at Georgetown, where he didn't come out until his senior year. And it's a little bit suspended in space and time. The actors are all quite old. They are not 18.
Yeah. They don't look 18.
None of them are 18. They don't look 18. Like the wear of it is a little confusing. Like he's from Idaho and he seems a little bit out of time. Like that backstory of that the notion that a high school alpha would be the football captain and the homecoming king itself doesn't feel like quite what it would be to be an alpha boy at the like it's sort of placeless and weird and not what I expected, but I liked it.
Dana, what do you think?
Yeah.
I knew you would.
I mean, I will say this. There is a sincerity and sweetness about it, in spite of the fact that it's raunchy as all get out.
Oh, yeah. We were like, should we show the kids? And then I was like, nope.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's really raunchy. It's really bro-y. Like, you have to spend so much time in the company of really unpleasant frat boys just to make the point that, yes, straight frat boys are, in fact, unpleasant to hang out with in large groups. And that's what the main character is experiencing. But we, as the audience, also have to experience a great deal of it. But I think that placelessness and timelessness that Julia was talking about just really kept me from being able to enter the world of the show. Like, no one seems like a college student at all, but also college doesn't seem like college. Like, one of the big drivers of the whole season is that there's this, it's not quite a frat, but the thing you were referring to, Steve, it's like a secret society. I think it's supposed to be like Skull and Bones at Yale. It's called Flesh and Gold. Another thing is we don't exactly know like how elite this college is, and that seems like it would be important to understand. Like, is it a fake Ivy? Where is the college located? All of that is kind of unclear. But to go back to the Flesh and Bone, whatever it's called, Flesh and Gold Society, that they're all so interested in getting rushed, it just, that had a real sociological clunkiness and wrongness to it. It was kind of assuming that like every single person at this entire university has the same aspirations and the same hierarchical imagination. And there's this vague outside of like the gay world, right? Like there's one gay guy who kind of represents, you know, the LGBTQ society, and the possibility of Benny maybe coming out is, you know, connected with this one character. But he seems to, I guess, be outside the world of aspirants to Flesh and Gold, but everybody else is in it. And everybody else wants male and female. The society seems to be co-ed, and everyone wants to undergo these humiliating rush rituals in order to get into this society. And there kind of isn't any counter narrative to that. It's just kind of assumed that everyone in college is like I don't know, a straight person who's, very hierarchically minded and wants the exact same things. And it just didn't feel like actual college where there are actual groups of people with competing interests and desires. So I never bought into the world that it took place in.
I countenance all of your criticisms of it. I came to it having watched the first 2 episodes with my kids who absolutely love it. They were laughing their ass off. I was laughing my ass off at them laughing their ass off. So I was bound to be very pro. And for whatever reason, like, they do not find it inauthentic in the least. I thought, but just quickly, I thought the first 2 were very strong. The last 2 were very strong. I thought there was a lot of frenetic action in between, and the action gets kind of oddly edited and sort of jazzy and discontinuous in ways, even though it was still funny and snackable, as Julia said. One thing I would say is that I think the wisest thing, or among the wise things about the show, is you're talking about a generation of kids, even setting aside the timelessness of it, like what generation are we talking about? In general, you're talking about a generation of kids who've grown up with social media and pornography, right? The utter ubiquity of pornography. So the raunchiness actually has an aspect of commentary to it, which is there's this huge discrepancy between this knowingness of a kid who has the entire world at their fingertip starting from a very young age on a laptop, alone in their room, right? So long as they have an internet connection, and the actually relatively slim basis of their own experience, sexually speaking or otherwise. I mean, not in all cases, but in many cases. And what it means is that everyone is fronting all the time. And I remember this. I remember feeling this when I went to Yale for graduate school. It's like, oh, everyone's pretending they know everything already, and therefore they're learning nothing. And it's kind of translate to the experience of the teenager now, right? They're like, we all know everything. We've already done everything, even though they're actually at a painfully vulnerable formative phase in their own lives. And I thought the show, through the raunch and through a lot of the one-liners and a lot of the situations, was trying to get at that. Like, everyone is fucking overcompensating, maybe in the whole fucking world, but especially in this age group. And that rang true. And then ultimately the kind-heartedness of it really won me over. And I love Wally Baram. She's so good.
She's really good.
Terrific.
She's put her in something with Corey Michael Smith. She's great. No, I agree with that about the relationship to sex and sort of the vulnerability and naivete that truly discovering your sexual self requires in any age, no matter how much porn you've seen or how many nasty jokes you've made. The other reason that I think you spend so much time with the frat boys is the same thing, Dana, because I think maybe one reason why you make a coming out show in 2025, in addition to the fact that, every person who ever comes out has a version of that journey, whether it's, seamless from the dawn of puberty with your loving parents and welcoming community, or probably some version on a spectrum further down the road, is that it's a way of highlighting everybody's relationship to their own sexuality and masculinity. What masculinity is for young men is obviously troubled and politically significant. And I don't know that I think this show is going to transform our lived world, but I don't know. Somehow that's what made me forgive the strange dollhouse quality of these big, remember when you were little, if you put Barbies in a dollhouse and they're the wrong size and you sit them on the floor and their heads are touching the ceiling, the whole show kind of looks like that. It's these grown-ups play acting, being college kids at a college that seems like a dollhouse of a college. The whole thing feels very kind of naive and false, and then underneath feels sort of emotionally true in a way that I ended up finding kind of winning.
This show actually, and this is kind of rare in the streaming era, gets better as it goes along. Mm-hmm. It really does. And if I hadn't stuck through I've now seen 6 episodes of 8, so I'm sure I'll finish the last 2. They're so short and fun, easy to watch. But it wasn't until episode 5 that I felt like some of the questions I had, for example, the lesbian character you were talking about becomes more prominent. There starts to be another world that emerges besides, we've got to rush the frat, bruh. And it took too long to get there, but it does have heart, and the heart starts to come out as it goes along.
I have to shout out very quickly to the actress who goes by the mononym Holmes, Holmes. She plays Haley, the roommate to Carmen, and is all of the most id-driven raunch of the show is often pouring out of her mouth, and she's famous as an ad-libber, on-set ad-libber, with the cameras rolling. I find her so fucking funny in this show.
She's a social media star too, right? I think like Benny, she is a social media personality, no?
It's so it's at first it's so over the top, it's totally disorienting. And I got to the end of the show, I was like, that person is a genius. And I'd watch her do that till the cows came home. Okay, it's overcompensating. It's on the internet.
Amazon Prime Video, streaming TV.
Perk up. That's what I said. It's on Amazon Prime. We're very mixed, but we'd be curious to know what you think. Let's move on.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called AutoQuote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
If there's one thing to learn from the entertainment industry, it's just how easy it is to earn a reputation, even if it doesn't reflect who celebrities really are. For example, everybody thinks that Discover is a card that isn't widely accepted, but in reality, it's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Yeah, 99%. So maybe now you'll think twice before judging a book by its cover. Unless it's a celebrity cookbook, in that case, judge away. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/credit card. All right. Well, the journalist Nicholas Kwa has recently wrote, 15 years ago, building national name recognition was a straight shot. A newspaper feature, a magazine cover, a morning show, late night hit, the trade, some local spots. Today, the new media circuit resembles a maddening sprawl, countless possible routes, none guaranteed. Julia, I'm very quickly going to start with you. This strikes me as a classic Brave New World or Plus Ça Change story. Wasn't it kind of always like this, or is there something really new going on? The point being, what does publicity want to accomplish, right? You have a certain set of, you've got the talent, the project, the predictable outlets, and the fickle public. And what you're trying to do is control for the reaction of the fickle public in the face of a new product, and limit basically every variable except that X factor of how an audience is going to respond to the image of the star in relation to the material they're promoting. All of it is an attempt to control variables, and those variables, so the thesis is, have proliferated out of control of publicists in the new media environment. Does this strike you as an editor and just an online savvy human being as true, or somewhat exaggerated? How did you react to this piece?
I really liked this piece. I mean, it's a whole package of pieces about the kind of current publicity predicament. There's also like a pretty funny review of like, okay, say you're an ingenue trying to become an A-lister, like which hits do you do? And say you're like a legend, but you still have to, hike up your skirts into a little press, like where do you go? And then say you've fucked up somehow and you're on a redemption tour, and they all have to go eat chicken with either the chicken date girl or the hot wings guy or both. And then the rest of them have their own arcs. It's like very smart and savvy, has interviews with and analyses of some of these interesting stops on the new circuit. And I enjoyed it, learned a bit, and also felt a little bit like, boo-hoo-hoo, you poor publicists. Like, this is the problem for all of us. This is the problem with our entire society, is the question of, like, how does information get to the people you'd like to have it? I am more concerned with non-publicity information and how you might put it together and package it in ways that it would get to the brains of the people who need it to make important decisions, like who to vote for and what to believe about the world. But as a vivisection of this particular arena of culture that actually sort of highlights the broader problem of how do you get anybody to notice or think about anything in a fragmented media landscape, it's a pretty smart version thereof. Dana, did you weep for the publicists?
I mean, I will tell you that the publicists who were all off the record, I don't think a single PR person
put their fucking name down. They're like, but
I understand why, because that, of course, allows them to speak more freely. And the way they expressed themselves was just so funny that I sort of wanted another piece in the package that was a profile of all of these publicists, especially if any of them had been willing to reveal more details about who they were and their employment history, because they all basically talked like characters in The Sweet Smell of Success, right? I mean, they were just all these like kind of, I don't know, wizened variety slang slinging, just jaded characters that were very funny about the impossibility of getting your client noticed at all. Yeah, and it all this reading about this stuff also made me go down some rabbit holes I had never been down. Like I had never watched Chicken Shop Date. I knew about Hot Ones because we talked about Hot Ones on this show, and I had, of course, read before that there was this British YouTube show Chicken Shop Date where if celebrities go have chicken with this woman Amelia de Moldenberg, but I had never watched it, and so I'm thankful to this.
She's pretty great.
This topic for making me discover that show, which is really kind of an excellent, basically a sketch show almost. Just an improv extravaganza. I watched her Andrew Garfield one because these pieces start off talking about Andrew Garfield's last press tour. And yeah, she's kind of a master at what she does.
Part of it is, and this is something we've been dealing with in the news media for a long time, but like you don't have to go through us, the journalists, anymore to get your message out. It used to be the media companies controlled the means of dissemination of information, and they would hire a bunch of journalists to make a thing for a type of audience, and then everyone had to go through us to get to anybody, whether it's a presidential candidate or a starlet with a movie to shill, and now they don't. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about the Hawk-Tuah girl, which since we talked about the Hawk-Tuah show, she like mysteriously disappeared for months, and everyone was like, what happened to her? But I guess she's back, so good for her. But the notion that you can take a certain kind of charisma and ability to structure something for people's attention and like build an audience, and that's good. Like anointed gatekeepers through limited means of distribution, even though it may have had some cultural upsides, like people believing in things that were true, like also had its downsides. So anyway, if we sacrifice democracy for Amelia de Moldenberg, like, I guess. Steve, just made me stop talking.
I'm enjoying this. I thought this was so interesting. I mean, it's not as if the thing that this world has replaced was itself a golden age of taste and, and truth, right? I mean, a big change that happened in my lifetime previously. I mean, I think the other epochal shift happened in the 70s when you had a multitude of media companies across a variety of different platforms. I mean, essentially, you didn't have cross ownership and across various kinds of platform because of antitrust laws, which were repealed over the course of the 70s and then obliterated under Reagan. So you were able to build multimedia empires whose whole basis was the synergies unlocked and the ability to cross-promote your movies on your TV shows and in your magazines and on and on and on. That's not like some panacea. That wasn't some vehicle for truth. It was a highly mediated, corporate-driven, really media empire-driven reality that was not reality itself in some sense. In a weird way, fragmentation and the organic nature of celebrities minted on YouTube has maybe a possibility of a kind of truer outcome of audiences coming together in an like there is no fixed pre-existing audience. It comes together because a certain thing has created it in that instance, and then it amoebically separates and comes together around another phenomenon. Anyway, let me give two examples to make this a little more concrete. One was the fascinating phenomenon of Timothy Chalamet over the last, let's say, year and the kind of publicity he's been getting in a number of different ways, one of which is going in person to a Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest in Washington Square Park, which just immediately makes you like the guy, right? This kind of sprightly, sort of above it all seeming, possibly, figure who's not a traditionally masculine in a way that traditionally masculine movie stars have been, all of a sudden seemed utterly human and had a sense of humor about himself. His sudden kind of weird almost ubiquity on sports shows, including the halftime college football a broadcast where he just weighed in as one of the guys, like, Indiana +3.5 because their defensive backfield is whatever. I mean, if was that canned, you didn't care. I mean, it kind of like worked in a weird way. And now at courtside at the Knicks game. And then the other one, which clearly was, publicist generated, was the glass cube in, was it Grand Central with the cast of Severance inside it. And it just sort of physicalized and made it just, what a brilliant thing, right? Because which is like outside, like what, when you're trying to convey the world that is outside all of the hermetic bubbles that we might or might not live in, you think of like a bus station or a train station. So it's quintessentially outside, and then the quintessential inside of a bunch of super famous people placed in the middle of it, and this divider between you and them, even though you can see them. It's just brilliant publicity. So, you have to be more cunning, but only because you don't have this top-down global octopus that's able to control the narrative around celebrity and pop culture as unilaterally as it used to be. So I don't know. Thousand flowers bloom. I don't know.
One thing I'll say about the piece is it's from a publicist perspective, and it's like, I can't believe they didn't get one of the like retired grand dames of publicists who like doesn't need the bookers at Chicken Shop Date to like her to mouth off about this. But there was a lot about the vulnerability and career fears of the publicists. For me, it's like the talent. I mean, I get that having sympathy for people who are in a profession that might make them famous is maybe unfashionable, and it comes with a job, and you got to go shill or this or that. But like, you have to be, but like Timothée Chalamet is clearly a genius at many, many things, including acting, but also performing a charming selfhood at all times and all mediums. And like, if that does, and Andrew Garfield as well, like there's a requirement for like a looseness of charisma behind the performer that you can really see. And like, can you imagine getting the call? You're like Britt Lowry or whatever, and they're like, okay, so we're going to put you guys in a box in Grand Central. Like, wouldn't you think that they'd lost their minds? Like, I mean, maybe you'd get it immediately. I don't know that I would get it immediately. like, I have to do what now? Like, can't I just, go to a hotel room and like talk to 5 journalists in a row?
Go on Carson. Yeah.
Like, it just, it does seem kind of exhausting. But then also it's, the people making these things, that part of the job is to get people to watch them. Like they know that, and they have different feelings about it and different levels of engagement. And it's usually in their contracts that they've got to do some amount of press, whatever that is. And some people approach it cheerfully, and some people feel like it's a slog. But just the kind of risk taking and vulnerability, and that's who I'm crying for, I guess, the famous people.
Well, and also people just want the famous person without the publicist. I mean, that's the real lesson is, right? You want to see someone unfiltered, or at least can present the illusion of being unfiltered and not, their whole presentation hasn't been curated by a third party.
Which is kind of the gambit of Hot Ones, if you think about it, right? I mean, there's an actual chemical agent that will break down their glossy persona into something different, right? Like their nose is going to run or something. I just think of Viola Davis doing Hot Ones, which is one of my favorites when we watched some to talk about it on this show. And there was just something about the unflappability and the dignity and, just kind of this very powerful and contained persona that Viola Davis has, just turning into this snotty, teary mess. It was just very endearing.
Or on a more elevated, supposedly, note, like the Criterion Closet, right? It's like people and their genuine veneration for the art form and their knowledge of its history. And, they could come off as a pretentious twit. They could come off as like a genuine cinephile in the like most interesting way. And that was a great one.
Oh my gosh, I feel like the Criterion Closet one would be the hardest one for me. I have now finally seen Chinatown as discussed, but like the fact that I've seen all of films since we started this podcast, I've seen every movie that came out since 2008 and 0 movies prior would really get exposed, I feel like. But Dana, which one would you most love or hate to do?
Well, I mean, we talked about this when we did the Criterion Closet. I've now been to the Criterion office countless times and never once have even been asked to look at the closet, much less gather films from it on camera. So I guess that would be my dream one. But I have to say that if I were talent, if I were a person who had done a show and didn't want to sit in front of a bunch of media, I'd rather be in a glass box at Grand Central probably than go on Colbert or something like that. It's less anxiety producing. All you have to do is sort of live your character in a different setting.
Steve?
I'd like to be interviewed by Isaac Chotiner of The New Yorker so that by the end of it, everyone who thought they liked me realized what an incredibly two-faced fraud I really was.
That says everything about you, Steve.
Like, he just pulls the thread and all of a sudden this like lovely little darn sock is a spool of...
You want to get Chotnered. All right, we can make it happen.
Okay, well, you can certainly read the Nicholas Qua piece on Vulture, and it's a whole package, as Julia says. Fame and Frustration on the New Media Circuit. It's dated May 27th. Check it out. All right, let's move on.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game, shifting a little money here, a little there, just hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill, too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If there's one thing to learn from the entertainment industry, it's just how easy it is to earn a reputation, even if it doesn't reflect who celebrities really are. For example, everybody thinks that Discover is a card that isn't widely accepted, but in reality, it's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Yeah, 99%. So maybe now you'll think twice before judging a book by its cover. Unless it's a celebrity cookbook, in that case, judge away. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/credit card. All right, now is the moment in the podcast when we endorse Dana. What do you have?
Steve, I've actually been saving this endorsement for a week when you were on the show because I think it's a book you would really love if you haven't read it before. Have either of you read The Swerve by Stephen Greenblatt from back in 2011, I believe it came out?
No, but my dad read it and was obsessed with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's that kind of book. It's the kind of book that you feel evangelical about upon reading. Do you know the book I'm talking about,
I
Steve?
do. I've read the tour de force introduction and then promised that I would finish the book because I was a guest at a house that had a copy of it. And now you've reminded me to find it and read it.
I mean, I found it an incredible page turner. Now, reading up on it a little bit in order to summarize it for this endorsement, I see that it was somewhat controversial when it came out. It won a Pulitzer Prize. It also won a National Book Award. But then there was some pushback about it being essentially that it sort of simplified some of the ideas that it is about. But it is about so many ideas. It would be hard to cover every single one of them with the rigor that it seems like Stephen Greenblatt is bringing to everything to me. So I came upon this book because, as I've mentioned on the show recently, I've been on this Shakespeare biography jag, reading a lot about Shakespeare's life. Of course, Stephen Greenblatt wrote Will and the World, very, famous and I think wonderful kind of speculative biography of Shakespeare. And because of that book, I was probably algorithmically guided at some point toward this book by him, which even more than the Shakespeare book, I think, just tries to encompass a huge amount of intellectual history. So basically what the book does is it follows the revival of the poem by Lucretius, De Rerum Natura, The Nature of Things, I guess is the English translation usually, which was lost for many years, right? It's a Roman poem based on some Greek ideas. It's essentially sort of a piece of Stoic philosophy that's also a beautiful poem. And it was lost for a very, very long time. So this is the story of both the discovery of the manuscript by Poggio Bracciolini, the Renaissance scholar. So there's a lot about Poggio and about sort of book copying in the Middle Ages and the early printing press and sort of how the poem reemerged to become something that could be translated and read by people. But then Greenblatt just takes the ideas in the poem, which are essentially, they sound now but like very modern ideas about atoms, for example. The theory of atoms is in there. And, just the idea that the world is made up of these swirling things that recombine in different ways. And that rather than there being a sort of afterlife. There's just this eternal recycling. And, which obviously was a very heretical idea for years. And Copernicus would have read this book, probably Shakespeare, certainly through Montaigne, would have been exposed to these ideas. So he basically takes the ideas in the poem and sort of traces them throughout history. The subtitle of the book is How the World Became Modern. And I found it mind-blowing. To me, it was one of those, I wish that I had read it long, long ago, because it's the kind of book that will change the way you think about ideas and their transmission and their preservation through time. And it's just incredibly ambitious. In about 400 pages, it gets through many, many centuries of human thought and a lot of really complex ideas. And he's just an amazing scholar. So yeah, The Swerve by Stephen Greenblatt.
And the kind of ideal of the genuine scholar working within the academy and the peer review system, achieving enormous success, and then finding ways to write for a general audience that are neither condescending nor oversimplifying, just totally lucid, totally engaging. I mean, he really is a paragon.
Yeah, he's a master. I mean, it really, what brings it all together is his own passion for these ideas. Like, this book is so not dry at all. Yeah. And it feels like something that should be assigned to college students, because it's the kind of book that gets you excited about ideas and the history of ideas.
To the extent that we're all worried about AI and like the hoovering up of all human knowledge into it, it's like the whole point is the swerve. Right? The unpredictable moment where things recombine in ways that nothing that came before could possibly have dictated or made predictable. And the fact that it is his creativity as a swerver that made him think to write this book. Anyway, it'll rescue us from.
I am putting that on my list. That I have never read it, and it sounds so good.
Julia, what do you have?
Okay, well, I've been struck by 2 memoirs that are out. There's 3 memoirs out by sort of grand figures of decades past right now. Barry Diller's memoir just famously came out. But a couple months before that, we had one from Graydon Carter, the longtime editor of Vanity Fair, called When the Going Was Good. And then we have one from Keith McNally, the restaurateur, called I Regret Almost Everything. And it strikes me that if you are thinking about, as a man who has achieved great things, what tone to strike in your memoir, those 2 last titles really offer you 2 paths. Like, when the going was good, back when I was on top of the world, everything was great. It's definitely one tone. The book I chose to read is the other one, because that tone seems less appealing to me than someone who's achieved a lot and done a lot, and is a little more wry and self-deprecating about it. And so I've just begun the Keith McNally memoir, which has gotten great reviews, called I Regret Almost Everything. And yeah, I'm barely into it, but I'm happy with my selection so far.
Julia, I have to say, I scarcely knew the name McNally before that book came out, and then was kind of amazed at the like murderer's row of restaurants, like truly iconic restaurants. Name some of them.
Odeon, Balthazar, Pastis, Minetta Tavern. I mean, just like through decade by decade, like delicious places people wanted to be at that had a certain vibe and a certain air. And I don't know, am I alone in here? Like, I can't think of either of those 2 books without thinking of the other one. Like, those titles seem like a pair to me somehow, like of just how to age. Like, maybe that's not fair. Maybe the Graydon Carter book is full of self-deprecation.
Well, and also same city, same decades, and like they were all eating at Odeon.
Yeah, I'm sure those men have been in the same room many times.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, apologies if, in fact, Graydon Carter has written a charming and self-deprecating memoir, but the title does not suggest that.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so I have a 2-parter. The first part does come with, I say this as unglibly as I possibly can, comes with a bit of a trigger warning. There are some people who will not want to read this piece, but it was so overwhelmingly the best thing I read over the past week, and it has stayed with me. It just floored me for its emotional power and its moral clarity. But an academic named Sarah Beckwith, who's a professor, I believe, of English at Duke, with some other ancillary concerns. I think theater studies, or I'm sorry that I don't know, but she's effectively in the English department, whose specialty is medieval and early modern theater, especially Shakespeare, but she's also into language philosophy of Austen, Wittgenstein, and Cavell. I mean, these are all things that massively interest me. Wrote about how she was raped in England for The New Yorker, and the apprehension of the person who did it, who is a serial rapist, and the piece is just a tour de force from beginning to end. But to me, the most powerful heart of it is what the aftermath of that experience was like for her. And she's, speaking of Greenblatt, she has that same kind of immense gift of someone who spent a lifetime studying something with utmost seriousness and thinking it through, and yet it hasn't transformed her into someone who's arcane, ivory-towered, or removed from sort of ordinary language and concerns. And so even though I don't know that she ever explicitly makes this connection, but the fact that she studied like the Eucharist and the nature of Christ's body and what we owe to others and whether they are real to us or not, all of it comes out in the writing of this piece. It just struck me as the New Yorker at its best, in some sense. It's an incredibly powerful piece of writing. And the piece is, by Sarah Beckwith. It's in the May 26th New Yorker. It's called Returning to the Scene of My Brutal Rape. Again, absolutely be advised. If that's not the kind of thing you want to read, I would understand. And then very quickly, I finally have cracked Roberto Bolaño. I'm reading 2666. Do we have any Bolaño heads on the panel?
Oh, God. I started the Savage Detectives in 2000 and whenever we were all supposed to, and I never read it.
Well, this is not an endorsement. It's a question. It's a 900-page, it's doorstop. It's a freaking weapon, right? I'm only just shy of 200 pages in, maybe 180 pages in. And I'm like kind of on one of the weirder fences I've ever been on, that there's an opening, I think, like legitimately tour de force set up for the very first kind of series of set pieces involving these three academics, all of whom study the same thing. And it couldn't be more gripping. Strikes me as so true to life. They're all from different places. One's English, one's Spanish, and one's French, and how they come together is really fascinating. And they form this little world within a world within a world, a little community between the three of them because they're obsessed with the same German author who they've been whose reputation they've been instrumental in reviving. It's a fictional author. Like, author doesn't exist outside of the framework of the novel. And it's like how their relationship, all of it just sucked me in completely. I was like, I'm all in. I cannot believe how good this is. And then it begins to, is it drift? Am I drifting? Is it drifting? This is what I'm throwing out there. Like, I'm almost inevitably going to stick with it, but I'm just curious to hear from people who did stick with it and how they felt about sticking with it, with please no spoilers. So Bolaño the for and against for Bolaño, weigh in. I'd love to hear from you. But as of now, I'm going to keep going. Julia, thank you. That was fun.
Thanks, Steve.
Dana, it's always just best to be, it's so nice to be in the same room.
I know. I'm going to miss it next time.
Well, actually, I'll be back next week.
Oh, all right. All right. I won't start missing you till you're gone.
Excellent. All right. You'll find links to some of the things we talked about today at our show page. That's at slate.com/culturefest. And you can email us at culturefest@slate.com. Our introductory music is by the composer Nicholas Bertel.
Who we should mention did the music for Mountainhead.
No.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, fab. I can't wait to go back and re-experience it.
I mean, you can. I knew it watching, and you can sort of hear it's like more electronic, but you can hear the successionness.
Our production assistant is Daniel Hirsch. Our producer is the sorely missed Benjamin Frisch. For Dana Stevens and Julia Turner, I'm Stephen Metcalf. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you soon.
All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days.
I know what we're gonna do today.
Of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans. Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're gonna bust Phineas and Ferb once and for all.
Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus. On DisneyPlus.Disney.com.